Hello, comrades, and you're very welcome to the Football Spin. It's a football spin on a very nice Wednesday morning. Paddy McKenna here, Reuben Pinder here, and Naz Choudry here. And I have to say, this is a momentous day. We're going to talk about football, obviously, in a moment. But first of all, Naz, I'm loving what you've done with your hair, mate. And I can
Yeah,
say that because for the first time ever, Naz, Reuben, and I can actually see each other thanks to the wonders of modern technology.
it's amazing. And yeah, I've decided to go proper sort of because the thing is, if you can't go to hairdressers, this is the only way to go. To be honest, I mean, out of the three of us, I think Ruben's probably the one who has to. There's the most that needs to be done to that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm just intrigued, sort of what road you're going down, Ruben.
I had my first haircut in a barber's about a week ago, and had to get rid of the awful blonde dye that I've been living with for a few months.
First since lockdown, Ruben. First, not
Yeah,
your first ever trip to a
no,
barber.
since
So
lockdown, yeah.
With
I was like,
mum.
what?
No, yeah. So first time been back to the barbers in several months, and do you know the one thing I didn't miss about getting a haircut professionally was the terrible football chat that you have to endure with the barbers to make small talk.
When
Do you talk
when
to barbers about football?
when a barber asks you what you do for a living, what do you say? Because I
Well,
never say what I do because it causes conversation and I don't want that.
see, I've learnt this. My friend who did like film and English at uni just says, "Oh, I'm a plumber," because then there's no conversation to be had, and you just get a haircut in silence. So I might start saying I'm a plumber, although I don't think it's very believable.
What if the hairdresser has like or barber has a leak, and the next thing they're asking you for like
Oh,
looking
can
to
I take
get
your
you
number,
in to
mate?
do a
Yeah,
job?
yeah.
Oh no, I'm booked up for the next 6 months.
Incidentally, talking about Ruben's blonde hair, do you think that certain football? Because I've got a theory that certain footballers um, develop certain looks and certain haircuts to get noticed.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think there's a big handsome bias when it comes to footballers and how we rate them. I think, no offense to him, Angel Di Maria probably a bit underrated because he's not as groomed as your Cristiano
Hmm.
Ronaldo's, etc. So yeah, maybe. I mean, Grealish,
God, I hope it's not true for James Rodriguez because he's so bloody handsome.
I know.
Worse
um,
the other way.
Loftus Cheek, another player who gets a lot of hype for not a lot
Yeah.
of achievement.
I've heard that there's like advice that scouts will give to footballers, or sorry, would say coaches will give to young footballers is to get noticed in like a game when there could be like a scout could be watching like 200 or 300 kids in a day, is to do something mad with your hair because then you'll be remembered. Even like you'll stand out straight off the bat. So if you do anything good, the scout's going to remember the kid with the purple hair or red hair
The
or
best thing to do in that case would be, do you remember when Sven was England manager? There was a kid who got the Sven haircut, so he just got like all the top shaved off and had the back and the sides remain. That will make you stand out at a trial.
Definitely will.
tonsure, I think that's called the monk. When you shave just the top and you leave the sides.
It's got
There
its
you
own
go.
name, but okay.
Okay, right. Well, look at it's as I say, a momentous day. Reuben and Naz are standing by. Reuben's wearing his England jersey. You feeling particularly proud after England's incredible 0-0 draw with Denmark?
Not really. It felt like watching England 10 years ago, or like even more recently than that, just the sort of the blandness, the stodgy formation. Like
Mm.
I did a tweet the other day about shirt numbers and how when a winger wears 9 because a striker wants to wear 10, it like bugs me. And like yesterday, looking at the lineup, when Declan Rice is wearing number 8, you know that you've gone a bit too defensive. I think you've got 3 centre backs, then you've got another kind of centre back in midfield, and you've got a holding midfielder next to him, and then you've got no left footed centre back on the pitch, no left footed wing back. The whole team is right footed, and there's only 3 naturally attacking players on the pitch against Denmark. Like I know they're pretty good, but there was definitely room for a more attacking lineup there. Like Grealish, when he came on, he was really good. Created a couple of chances more than Rice, Phillips, and Kane managed before he came on. And like, I just don't know why he wouldn't have started in a 4-3-3. It could have been perfectly balanced, and it wouldn't have been like gung ho to play another creator instead of like 7 defensive players. But Southgate is capable of putting out those very conservative, stodgy teams. Both games recently haven't been very impressive, but I guess you take the points and you move on.
Very much the kind of theme or the general sort of feel with international football at this time of the year, which essentially is still, it's like, God, it's like playing like international games in pre-season, like playing international games in July, really, at any other time of the year. So it's very strange, and definitely like watching Ireland as well. Ireland know Denmark far too well. We've played them way too many times in the last 4 years, and I kind of felt watching England Denmark last night. Ireland do to Denmark what Denmark have done to England, because Denmark are a better team than Ireland. They have better players, and then Ireland just go out, have gone out, and just tried to stop them playing. And Denmark and Ireland are good enough to do that, and Denmark are good enough to stop England being fluent. And I think that was what you saw a lot of last night. They were not a team that you're going to swat out of the way, even though you got much better footballers. What did you think, Nas, overall? I mean, obviously, a lot of the chat was about the debutants. I saw, like, I think it's the most debutants to play in one game since like 1950s or something like that. And a lot of the focus would have been on, I suppose, the Yorkshire Perlo to begin with. But by the end, everybody's talking about the Brummy. Raquelme, I don't know. What is he? He's the Brummy version. Rui Costa. That'll
Yeah.
do. How did Grealish do?
He did well, but again, I think this is the first match in which like Southgate's got some proper and due sort of criticism, because I mean it made no sense. Like no one was surprised at how things went. No one was surprised at how stodgy and just predictable the play was, and I actually think it's massively unfair. Like I always think, do you know, like when Arsenal or United or anyone has got a League Cup game against lower opposition, and they always bring a group of reserves stroke young players in to play together. I always think that's really unfair on those players trying to make their mark, because they are playing with other players who are trying to prove themselves, other players who aren't sort of settled, and the whole team seems bad as a result, and no one can really shine. And it's similar to that with this England team in that like loads of people were excited to see Phillips. Leeds fans will be really excited to see Phillips play, and Rice as well. There's been so much talk about up to 80 million being spent by Chelsea on him. So you kind of think like, let's have a proper look at how good these players are on the international stage. But if you play them together, it's really unfair on all of them. Like how can they possibly shine? Like Phillips is a player who can sit, who can do that box to box, but can play football. He can be progressive, but if he's sat in that midfield and he's got players around him like Dyer, like Rice, it's what is he meant to do? He's not this. He's not a playmaker. He's got other people in the team that are essentially doing the same job, and it's not as if, because the thing is, in terms of doing it against Denmark, one argument is you don't need to do it against Denmark because they're not going to pose that much of a threat. But the other flip side of that is Denmark aren't going to be the most progressive team in the game. So it means that there's no chance to sort of do counterattacks, no chance for players to shine in that respect. And I think it's interesting with Southgate in terms of he was in the domestic game, he did okay, but it was with lower level teams, with all due respect. And now with England, I suppose the situation's changed. Before he had an England team who had two or three really exciting talents, but weren't that highly rated and were sort of playing above their level. But now it's almost as if this England team is a top 10 Premier League team or a top 6 Premier League team, where they have actually got now loads of talented players, and he's got to get the best out of them. And if he can't, that kind of suggests that maybe he's better with a team that's punching up rather than a team that should be doing far better. Because even like you look at those attackers as well, like Sancho's been blowing up and like doing amazing stuff in the Bundesliga, one of the most talented young players around, and he's done very little in two games. And I understand there's mitigating circumstances in terms of pre-season, but really, if you can't get the best out of all these talented players, it kind of it's a bit of a concern in terms of like how will that reflect sort of going forward and like in Euros and stuff.
I think you make some very valid points. The whole team selection basically wasn't fair on anyone. I think Cody is the only player that it really suited. Um, and yeah, like Phillips, I thought not a reflection on him. He plays in a very different system at club level, and it's basically pre-season. So, but it was so unfair on him to play him next to Rice in that system because he looked out of his depth. But I feel like he could grow into a player that can play for England and probably will. But like that just wasn't the game to give him his debut, like at all.
What about the idea, just Ruben, on that in terms of him not looking great? Sancho, I've seen a lot. Some United fans, obviously, they're exhaustive scouting, but having watched 60 minutes of him against Denmark for England, nah, mate, not worth 120 million. What are we after this guy for? And I get it because they're not watching the Bundesliga. This is their only chance to see Jadon Sancho beyond a YouTube highlights reel, and then they've made their minds up after 60 minutes. But it's almost like at international level, more and more so, every coach has got such a definitive way. I think strategies and formations, tactics are playing such a huge role for, say, like Calvin Phillips with Bielsa, Jadon Sancho, obviously, like he's playing to such a defined system at Dortmund. And then he comes into England, and it's like the old days where everybody's playing 4-4-2. I know that's a bit simplistic, but you know what I mean. There were less variations. Like coming into international level maybe wasn't such a leap, but now you're seeing guys who are good for their clubs are really good because the formations are so tailored to each individual player. And they come into the international setup, whether it's England or it's Ireland or any like, and they struggle, and they can't find their own rhythm. And I know it's still early in the season, but that's what I really felt over the last few days watching games, is that these are good players, really fantastic players, but when they're not in their comfortable system, or the system that they know and has been tailored to them and everybody else in the team, they don't look like 120 million pound players.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of always been the case with international football, hasn't it? And the weird thing is though, the system that England played yesterday is the system that Dortmund play, and Sancho played in the same position. They play a 3-4-3 with wing backs, and then Sancho and whoever, Royce, Torgan Hazard, Brandt, whoever, kind of players like narrow wingers. So in on paper, it's the same system. It was just like a much more conservative version of it with players that don't play it, and Trippier at left wing back. So like the personnel weren't right to create the same kind of free flowing football. But one good thing about Southgate is that he won't shoehorn players into a system that doesn't fit them, which is why he hasn't picked Grealish, because he doesn't see him as a midfielder. Until yesterday, he brought him on as an attacker. He sees him as kind of competing with Rashford and Sterling in them and that lot. So Southgate often won't pick. He won't just pick players. He'll pick a system and then try and pick the right players to fit into it. Like in the World Cup, it kind of worked for everybody because we had we played that back three system, and it allowed us to play more of a balanced. Well, the midfield wasn't that balanced, but then we had a back three behind them, and it kind of suited everybody. But the team selection against Denmark was a kind of an exception to that pattern because it didn't seem to suit anyone except for Connor Cody. But yeah, it wasn't his best game. But I don't think international football always provokes a knee jerk reaction, and I think we should just. I don't think we should overreact to these two games because it's basically pre-season.
Okay, well, fair enough. Pouring cold water over my sort of, kind of off the top of my head theory there about the evolution of international football.
Yeah,
That's okay, Ruben. I can live with that.
Captain Sensible over there.
Well, I've like reacted to England like defeats and stuff with such knee-jerk opinions in the past, and as everybody does, because we see England play slightly boring, and it's like, oh, and then Talksport just going, we need a David Silva type, and it's just like every time where England underwhelm, it's the same conversation, and I'm just wary of going down the same route.
The thing I love about you, Reuben, is that for someone so young, you're so cynical and world weary. I don't know if that's because you're a Palace fan or what, but
yeah, they've scarred me.
Okay, look, let's move on to the weekend's games. Obviously, Premier League is back. I mean, I don't know about you, but like, I'm ready. I mean, it's been 8 days since the Community Shield, so I'm starved of top class English club action. What are you looking for? We'll get into transfers in a moment, but of the many games this weekend, obviously there's a couple of teams that aren't playing. Four of the teams, yeah, United are amongst them, and City, they're being given a rest. But which games are you looking forward to seeing?
Well, I mean, the obvious one is Liverpool Leeds, partly because it's such historically it's such a great game between sort of two big northern clubs. But it's also about Bielsa and how he'll fit into how his team will fit into the Premier League. It looks as if they're quite ambitious in terms of what they want to do with the players that they want to sign and have signed. Obviously, they've been linked to Draxler as well, which would be an amazing coup. And yeah, and that game, it's more about Klopp versus Bielsa, just in terms of how they sort of set out their teams and stuff like that. I think also like I might be wrong, but there's almost a sense of for defending champions um, with so much talent and such a settled team, there seems to be a strange kind of despondency or like the mood around Liverpool fans isn't that cock a hoot. It's just interesting why that is. Maybe it's just a lack of signings or whatever. But
It is.
It's
I think
definitely the
that's it.
lack
I
of
think it's
signings.
Thiago. They're not
Definitely,
getting. They
yeah.
haven't gotten Thiago, and they may not get him now. United are in for Thiago apparently, and possibly Barca as well. So if Liverpool don't get Thiago, like that is like you just said it there. They're the champions. He clearly wants to go. Like it's a big question mark as to why, because it would appear that like Klopp would like him there as well.
It would be insane to let that opportunity to sign Thiago slip. Um, Not to remind Liverpool fans of slipping, but it's just too good an opportunity to turn down. But there is this current like obsession with the transfer window of like if you don't sign loads of good players, then you haven't had a good window. Whereas Liverpool still have a really good squad, and they should still be very optimistic going into the season. But I agree, Nos, there is this kind of lack of hype around them that's kind of unusual.
Thiago points to like cash flow concerns about
Mm.
why, like, how can they possibly not find the money to get him? But the flip side of that is like I've been really surprised that they'd. It sounds as if they'd be willing to let Brewster go. And when you consider that people say a lot about this Liverpool side in terms of like if any of the front three get injured, they're in trouble. Like Brewster, you would have thought like the hype around him and the what he's shown. Why would they possibly want to get rid of him?
Especially with the amount of games that they're going to have to play this season. Like basically, they're going to play 3 games a week on average, or like weekend, midweek, weekend, all the time this season. They're going to have to rotate the front three at some point. They've been quite lucky in the past couple of years that none of their front three have had a big injury. But like, yeah, you'd think they want to keep Brewster around, but apparently they're considering letting him go on a permanent with a buyback clause in there. I think Palace are interested, Brighton as well. It seems very odd, and I mean, presumably it's just so that they can raise the funds to sign Thiago. But it makes you wonder why they need to do that.
And also there's the fact that Newcastle have signed a player that Liverpool wanted, and I know Liverpool are kind of
That's crazy.
they
Yeah.
kind of decided up to a point they weren't gonna sort of pay anymore, and that's fair enough. That's up to them. They've shown that they've played the market very well previously, but like I find that unusual. That like Newcastle are a massive team and a great pull in their own way, but um, like I asked the question the other day on social media. When's the last time that Newcastle have signed a player that the champions of England wanted and couldn't get? So I mean that's exciting for Newcastle, but again, it's you kind of wonder like at Liverpool, like could they not find the money from somewhere? Even if it's like I know 50 million pounds seems like a lot, but it doesn't seem even as if they've got like that kind of budget.
Yeah, like the complicated thing now is that Barcelona also want Thiago, but Koeman wants Wijnaldum, and Liverpool getting Thiago hinges on them selling Wijnaldum to Barcelona. So it's just like one of those poker games in the transfer window. But yeah, it is a bit Maybe they're just being super careful because of the pandemic and their lost income, and they don't want to make any rash decisions when they've got a squad that just won the title. So that would be it's unusually sensible for a football club to act like that in the transfer window. But maybe that's the reason.
It's the story of this transfer window, I suppose, odds, is the mid-range clubs that have shown incredible ambition to bring in very exciting young talents, or some of the best young talent in Europe, or global superstars. Keep it going. I'm never let it stop.
Is that your message alert?
That's everything in my life now. More important than the sound of my children's voices is that 2 seconds of audio.
You're
so
like
yeah.
you're like the proud dad who's got a VHS of his first steps of his kid and records over it with James Rodriguez. How do you feel?
Oh yeah, amazing. And like it's the kind of amazing that comes with like an incredible signing where everybody wants to knock you, like United fans less so, but definitely Liverpool fans are very salty about it just because they didn't like, I know James is obviously in a stage of his career where he's not probably at his absolute peak, but he's still a massive player for Everton. He's a brilliant player for the Premier League, and everybody will want to see what happens when he togs out. So, but nobody can touch Everton fans at the minute because we're in that lovely honeymoon period where he's arrived. He's doing incredible media, like, because he's so handsome. He is just so handsome. And that little clip where I was saying to Reuben earlier on, it looks like Everton may have put like a little twinkle on his tooth at the end, but it's imperceptible. I mean, it's just enough to ask the question: Have they done something with this? But he is brilliant on camera. Like Naz, you were saying earlier on, like you forget or you don't realize how big a global superstar he is. And in fairness to Everton, I think they've done really well in harnessing that. They've had loads of time. They've known this guy has been joining now for probably the best part of a week to 10 days. He's been knocking around Liverpool, visiting restaurants, hanging out with Ancelotti at the weekend. And to be fair to Everton, they've seen that this is their big opportunity to push the Everton brand on a global stage, and they've gone for it. Like, so you're seeing James Rodriguez on billboards and on the big video
Times
screens
Square.
in Times Square.
Yeah.
You're seeing him in Miami on the river there with huge big banners again, and you're seeing his image pop up all across the world essentially. Like, Everton are going for it, and they're going to market Everton through James Rodriguez. And his Instagram account, 46 million or whatever it is, he's bigger than clubs. Like, his brand is bigger than a lot of the biggest clubs in the world. And because he's one of the biggest, if not the biggest star in Colombian football ever, which are one of the the great nations of South American football, he just brings so much in terms of his marketability and his commercial power. So, like, for Everton, it seems like it's a brilliant move. Like, I know that, like, people will say, "Oh, listen, I'm looking for." Someone text, "I'm looking for this is amazing for Everton." Like, Decore, James, and Allen, like, in the space of 4 days, and apparently, like, Reuben Zaha is next,
Not
and
happening.
there's rumors
Not
of
happening.
others to come. And someone just said, this is the typical, it's like, I'm really looking forward to seeing this all unravel. And, like, there is that sense with Everton that, like, as good as this is, God, the possibilities that it could go wrong are huge. But fuck that right now, because, like, let's just enjoy the fact that James is here. He's doing brilliant media. And, like, it's just Everton's name has been spoken of across the globe. And I'm sorry, when has that ever happened before? I don't think it has ever happened before.
I know it's an amazing period for Everton. You've just signed 3 29-year-olds on long-term contracts on massive wages. It's very exciting for the long-term plan, isn't it? No, I'm
That's what I
joking.
was waiting for.
James is a very good signing, very good player. He's I say 29 on long way. He's 29, so he's not old. Like, he's going to be good for at least a few more years. But it is like there isn't really a coherent long-term plan, is it? They just they're making big money signings, and that's exciting. And Alan and James especially will be good in the Premier League. I don't know about Decore, whether he starts. He's a bit of a one-trick pony in terms of he just scores long shots, and you've got Sigurdsson for that. But it's good business for now. But I feel like there's potential for it to become a little bit problematic down the line when you suddenly want to sell them and they have no resale value. Sorry,
The first thing I'd say is that's a very, again, world weary, bitter Palace fan, because he is the sort of a supporter of a notoriously aging team.
Oh yeah, we're old as fuck.
So I think there's a level of projecting going on there, but I don't know why. Like, there's something about this transfer that captures the imagination in a way that I can't sort of properly explain. It almost feels. Do you know there was that era where we were shocked that certain players were coming to the Premier League, like
Right.
when Chelsea signed Ruud Gullit or
Yeah.
Viala. It was like, fucking hell. Like, I just saw them on Italia 90 and they're coming here, and for some reason it feels like that. And again, like, we talk about him being sort of ridiculously good looking, but there's something about certain people, and again, it's unquantifiable. They've got this weird charisma or this weird draw to people. Like, I've seen people interviewing James Rodriguez where they're almost fawning over him. Like he's one of these people that sort of it's almost as if they've got a light bulb inside of them, and it's the kind of person that if you saw them on Bold Street in Liverpool, they're like, fucking hell, like a proper celebrity. And obviously, like that,
good vibes, doesn't he?
it does, and again, like that's all encapsulated in that. Is it like a 4-second clip? Is it the amazing? I don't know why that's so hilarious and rewatchable. It's to me, it looks as if he's really excited. Do you remember Karate Kid, where like he's trying to catch a fly with chopsticks?
Yes.
And when he finally does, he's buzzing. It almost feels like he's sat there and there's like a fly in front of him, and he's so chuffed to catch it, like, up the Duffys. He's like he can't believe he's finally caught it. But like it's amazing. And
Oh
there you
yeah.
go.
Up the Duffys.
Hook it to my veins.
But again, like we laugh, but that's another example of where he is fucking game. Do you know what I mean? He's not doing that because somebody told him to. Well, he's obviously doing it because somebody told him to. But
It's a
he's not
great
doing
point.
it. Yeah, he's
It's
not
a
doing it in a
great
half-assed
point,
way.
'cause-
He's totally he's thinking, I'm here, I'm going for it.
But more reasons to be positive. Like, first of all, like, that clip is magic, and like yeah, the whole it sounds a bit like Up the Duffys, and lots of people tweeting about Shane Duffy yesterday and getting lots of retweets and attention, which was brilliant. And like, what I couldn't believe was he signed yesterday. I know he's been in Liverpool for a couple of days. Next thing, Everton are throwing up pictures of him in training. I was like, because you know when like a big player signs, oh, it'll be a couple of weeks before he's in. Even I wasn't sure with coronavirus if he had to quarantine, but I don't think that applies in this case. And you're like, wow, he's straight into training. Like, that's how eager this guy is to get going. And of course, he's been kind of kicking his heels for a while, so it makes sense. But again, it's a testament to the fact this guy just wants to get involved and wants to play. I like Thomas Muller's tweet as well. Again, it just says to me he's a player that other players like, and like you said, Noz, he's got a charisma that he just brings people in. A Muller, who obviously has incredible comic timing and kind of weird Germanic likability himself, I suppose. But I just really like the fact that Muller wasn't afraid to just put it out there. His connection with obviously James is through Munich, but I don't know why, but I just not two players I would have put together, and there he is wishing him real well and like been really warm towards him as well, which I think says a lot about him.
Yeah, I also think referring to the a very valid point that Reuben made about sort of signing players of this age.
It is.
I think it's the first. I think you've got to look at it as the first step, because I think Everton, with all due respect, for people of a certain age, Everton does mean a very big club and does mean that amazing team in the 80s and a great history. But for younger people, and especially people from abroad, like, it's not really got, as a brand, if you want to call it that, it's not got that cachet of other clubs in England. Whereas I think one big step was getting Ancelotti, and suddenly people start to take notice of Everton, and players who probably wouldn't be that familiar with them start to take notice about them being a possibility to go to. And then I see this as another stage. The next stage is to get a player like James, um, and then suddenly, it can take you on to the next stage. And again, like obviously, it feels as if this superstar's coming into a team that's not really challenged for the Champions League. But then you've also got Richarlison, who sort of suddenly you've got like two really
Yeah,
outstanding
yeah.
world talents, and then that can it's sort of the next stage can be getting those younger players who will be attracted by the players that they've just signed. So I think it's part of a process.
He's a dictionary definition of a marquee signing, isn't he? And now yeah, as you say, they do have to start making more sensible, cheaper, younger signings. But now it's like kind of just shouting at everybody, like, "Remember us? We're big. Look who we've got. Come join us."
But again, as you say, it doesn't happen without Ancelotti. I mean, it was interesting that Alan had said, like, so much of it was down to, as he called him, Professor Ancelotti. Clearly James is coming for Ancelotti, and Doucouré was, again, just even the way they talk about Everton, like in times go, when you analyze that first statement from a player, you're parsing it because you're going, okay, how up for this is he, right? And I find with Everton, like in the past, there's always been that sort of sense. I'm using this as a stepping stone, and really, like, they would say it almost in, like, pretty much come out and say this is the right move for me. I think with Lukaku, he said as much, like, in his first interview, even though he was excited to be there and it was an exciting signing. And I know, like, any Everton fan will know, Everton are still a stepping stone. But just there was a change, something in Doucouré. What he said was like, I've been waiting so long for this transfer. Like, he was waiting to join Everton, which are obviously a club with money and a project and an exciting project. But again, he's waiting to join with the club that Carlo Ancelotti manages. Something about Everton as well has re-energized, reinvigorated, and sort of like given Ancelotti a bit of a boost as well. Like, because for him it was just go from, he had been to every big club in the world, essentially. Like, where else was there for him to go? So then it was like, okay, which is the most ambitious club that's in the next? They're not in the top clubs. They have a great tradition. They've got money to spend, and I can do something with them. And I think now we're seeing the real excitement of the Ancelotti project, coming to fruition. Essentially, with the players coming in, obviously it has to mean results on the field, but like that's what's happening. It is the Ancelotti effect.
I wouldn't discount the whole idea of because obviously it's massive in Colombia, and Colombia is a massive country with a huge population. But don't sort of don't forget about the diaspora of, like, in America, especially in North America.
Yeah, yeah.
That is huge. And again, this sounds like, and again, I'm sure Liverpool fans will take the piss out of me for saying this, and it sounds ridiculous to say it, but do you know, like, us in this country, we've got what can be defined as hipster clubs abroad, like Atlanta, like I don't know, Club Athletic or whatever, and yeah, and these clubs that sort of like we're drawn to if we want to be a little bit different, or we want to sort of show off that we know about football, or we've got this hipster element to our thinking. To people in South America and the US, like, if they want to show that they're not a run of the mill, oh, I support Liverpool, I support United, even like teams slightly a notch down, but very big, like Spurs. Um, the teams that would be very hipster to them in terms of the Premier League would be teams like Leeds and Everton and Newcastle. So I think you could very easily get uh, if Arsenal, I mean, if Everton play it right, you could have like a generation of fans in the Americas that are drawn to Everton simply because of James and what that means. And again, it sounds overblown and ridiculous, but there's loads of there's loads of people in various countries in Africa that have grown up as Chelsea fans
Mm.
because they signed players from those countries. So I think it's a massive signing for loads of reasons.
Yeah, and I think that brand strategy that you've outlined, Nas, which is a beautiful brand strategy, I have to say, in terms of how Everton can be perceived around the world. Like, it is interesting that, like, the artwork for James is done by an illustrator. I think he's done work with Marvel as well. It's very fresh, but it's like artwork that will translate on a global level. Like, it's not just a picture of James, it's this beautiful hero image of James looking amazing. And it looks great in a billboard, and it looks great on a big screen and all that kind of stuff. So clearly they're very conscious of that too, and that this is back to that idea. This is the opportunity for Everton to, like let's be honest, we all know this because we've had these conversations. Like, so much of what Everton have done in the last few seasons has been easy to mock, really, really easy to mock, and they have to try and climb out of that. And maybe this is the start of that, because up until Ancelotti arrived, there was just too much of that surrounded the club. So look, we'll see. We should move on. Just very quickly, we've got to talk about some of the other signings as well. I'm really excited to see Fabio Silva. I have to say, Wolves' new signing, 36 or thereabouts £1 million to spend on an 18-year-old is an incredible statement. And if it was anybody but, their manager, I think I'd be going, that's madness. That is probably going to end in tears. And I've seen people say, like, this is definitely the definition of a player that could end in being a flop because he's so young and it's so much money. But with Nuno, I fully expect the scouting has been incredible, that he's got every report about this guy's, not just his ability, but his mental strength, because he's going to need that. 18-year-old moving to Wolverhampton. I've never been, but I'm sure it's going to be quite different to what he's known. So he's been billed as one of the most exciting nines in Europe. What are your thoughts on their business? And generally, there's a few other clubs that have done incredible business.
Wolves they're an agent-led club in the transfer market, aren't they? He's a Mendes client, and it's another Mendes signing, but it seems to be working for them on the whole. Neves, Moutinho, Jimenez, obviously he's Mexican, but like that kind
Jota.
of, yeah, Jota's brilliant. So it works for them so far. So if, as you say, if it was anyone else, I'd be very skeptical. And it's important that people don't expect too much of him too soon, in spite of the price tag, because he's played like 3 games for the B team at Porto, and I don't think he's played a senior game for them. He's only 18 years old, so it's definitely one for the future. I think maybe if they're preparing to have to replace Raul Jimenez in like a year or two. So yeah, I mean, obviously I've never watched him play because he's hardly played a game for Porto, but given their record, you would expect him to be decent in the long term.
It's all, I mean, it's very true that Jorge Mendes has got his sticky little fingers all over this. But I mean, he's proved it before, like when United signed Bebe, for instance. So like, if he's half the player that Bebe was for United, then let Wolverhampton fans
Reuben's
are in
a cynical one, Noz. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think it's interesting, but also like there's two things interesting about what Reuben said. The first thing was not hyping him up too much, and the second thing was him having the confidence and the right frame of mind. In terms of the latter point, like the you can already tell by the publicity photos he thinks he's it.
Yeah, that's
Like,
right.
like he looks like the fucking lead singer of Star Sailor or something. Just sort of like stood there. He looks like he should be on the cover of Q magazine or NME.
Yeah.
But also the point about hyping him up is it was so funny when he talked about how Everton announced James and the hype they gave him. Like, Reuben is so right in terms of don't put undue pressure on him. Huge price tag, such a young player coming to a new league. When Wolves were promoting him signing and the tweet that went out, it started with like a montage of all these made up headlines that said the next Ronaldo, the new wonder kid. Like it was just flashing up. I was thinking, you are doing nothing to if anything, it sort of it does scream of like honestly, this is legit. He's a really good player, honest, and it's kind of like it was so funny that they ramped up the hype before he's even come. So it'll be interesting to watch him play. And again, I've not seen him play, but I wonder whether he's another. Just by the look of him, I wonder whether he's another Grealish sort of shirt outside the shirt outside the shorts, socks down kind of merchant.
He could be another Helder Postiga, but he could also be another Ronaldo. I mean, like it's just it's very exciting.
Or he could be another Star Sailor.
Or he could be another Star Sailor. He's not lacking in confidence, which is great. No, look at. I mean, if Wolves are ready to pile pressure on him, I'm also ready to pile pressure on him straight into my fantasy football team, and I'm expecting hatfuls of goals from the lad. So don't disappoint Fabio Silva. What else? Other signings that caught your eye?
The lad, I think Reuben's spoken about him before. The lad that Leeds have signed, Spanish lad.
Rodrigo.
He again, it would be interesting to get your point of view, Reuben. Like I kind of was impressed by him for Spain, but a lot of people kind of said he's not got an end product. Is that true?
It's tricky.
This is Rodrigo.
Yeah, Rodrigo Mourinho, who's just signed from Valencia for like 30 million euros. So he has had prolific seasons at Valencia, but finishing is not necessarily his best attribute. And I know that kind of worries a lot of Leeds fans when they're trying to replace Bamford, who does various good things but doesn't score enough goals. But I think in the Premier League, he will still be a lot more useful than Bamford. And I think part of the reason why he's not always been really prolific is because he's played out wide or as more of a 10 with a more natural striker next to him. Like in recent years, it's been like Kevin Gamero or Santi Mina. So like players that are more natural finishers, and then he kind of links the play in like a 4-4-2. So at playing as a lone striker, I think if they want him to link the play, run him behind, switch to the wing when necessary, I think he's got all the tools to play really well for Leeds. But I can understand the concern about his goal return because I mean last season Valencia were a shambles and he didn't score that many goals. But I've got a feeling that everything's gonna click into place and he will score a good amount of goals for Leeds. But yeah, a lot of people looking at it as we've signed the Spanish Patrick Bamford to replace Patrick Bamford, but still better than Patrick Bamford, isn't it?
It's also interesting that again, like you talk about managers, like Bielsa has got such an aura about him that as soon as he signs a player, just for the very fact he signed them, you kind of think, oh, he must be good, or
Yeah.
like it must be a genius move.
It probably does the player's confidence a world of good as well, thinking like, oh, well, if Bielsa wants me, then I must be good.
What else, Ruben? Anybody else we should be keeping an eye out for in terms of new signings to the Premier League?
I am very much looking forward to see what Ebere Eze does in a Palace shirt. Signed for just under 20 million from QPR.
He looks great.
Number 10 looks such a confident player. Looks like the perfect player to play. I don't think Zaha's leaving for various reasons. Not because he doesn't want to, just because he can't. I think Eze is the ideal player for him to help Zaha take a little bit of the attention off him, link up with him, because we've been so focused, we're so one-dimensional on Zaha over the past couple of years. It's so easy to stop us from playing. Whereas now with this kind of more of a creative number 10 who likes to dribble, I think very exciting for us, especially if we get Batshuayi back on loan to play in front of them.
You could turn into the great entertainers.
Yeah, I mean, we'd have an entirely dreadlocked front three, all of whom just love a trick, love a dribble. It's going to be great to watch. Well, it's not, is it? But it could be on paper. In theory, we might be fun next season. I'm not getting ahead of myself.
Okay, well, this is our Premier League preview show. So obviously we've been without Premier League for not very long, but it's back this weekend. So now you've got to put I didn't say this, but you've got to put your necks on the line. This is the bit we replay to you in 9 to 10 months' time and make you look silly. All right, I want to know who you think is going to be the champions of the Premier League 2021. I want to know who's going to be the top scorer in the Premier League. Okay.
I mean, it's not fair. You just totally dropped this on us.
Well, I mean, come on. It's only two things. And a third is
Can I chuck a couple of
breakout
caveats in
star.
there?
Breakout star. All right. I want a breakout star as well. All right. So I'm filling for time when you're I know you guys are better on the hoof. There's no point in getting you prepared for this. Let's just go for it. Okay. So first of all, champions. Reuben.
Can I chuck a couple of caveats in there?
Oh, fuck's sake.
If City sign Kalidou Koulibaly, I think they'll be champions. If they don't, I think Liverpool. So at the moment, because they haven't,
Liverpool.
I'm going to go Liverpool.
Pinder goes Liverpool.
Title.
Choudry.
Liverpool. I think. I mean, I'm not as convinced about Koulibaly as Reuben is. He's not he's not the player he looked he was a year ago or 18 months ago. So it'll be interesting, like especially at a club like City, and like City are so defensively sort of under scrutiny. That the first mistake he makes, he's going to be labelled a flop. So I think for City, obviously, very obvious thing to say, but if they'd assigned Messi, it would have been a game changer. But seeing as they're not, I think Liverpool. I think there's a lot to be said for stability.
Okay, so we got Liverpool. We got Liverpool. I'm gonna go Man City just to spice it up a little bit. No, I think
Surprised you haven't
this is
gone
their
Everton.
time. This is
Mm.
their time. And that big transfer that Reuben alludes to, I reckon it goes through. So I reckon then I'll be ready with the prediction, the right prediction for that particular for the champions of England. Right. Okay. Next is top scorer in the Premier League, Pinder.
I'm gonna go Aubameyang
Right.
again. I think he scores a bigger proportion of Arsenal's goals than
Yeah.
say other forwards do at bigger clubs. I think Liverpool's goals are a bit more spread out. Aubameyang looks really good in the Community Shield and the FA Cup. And Arsenal are building this subtly. They're building a pretty decent team. Um, so yeah, and did he not win it this year? No, Vardy won it this year, didn't he? But he was very close, and I think he tied it the year before. So yeah, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang.
Choudry.
I'm gonna again very predictable, but I'm gonna go for Harry Kane simply because he's so important to Spurs, and I think that's been underlined by All or Nothing. And I think that
Yeah.
I,
Okay.
I think that the signings that Spurs are making and are looking to make, I think it shows that Mourinho is putting all his eggs in one basket, and he's building the team
All
around
right.
getting the best out of Kane. Even Doherty and stuff like that. I think that's the prime sort of incentive to get the best out of this one world class player they've got. With all due respect to amazing players like Son. So yeah.
I'm gonna go with Fabio Silva. Because that price. No, I'm not going to go with Fabio Silva. I'm going to go with Aubameyang as well. That who's in my mind. I just think he's just so deadly, and I think Arteta and him have a great understanding. And I'm really interested to see what Arsenal do this year because I think the chaos maybe has subsided a little bit, and Arteta, like this is his opportunity, his big opportunity to prove how good of a manager he is. He's been dropped in at the deep end, and I actually think he's done incredibly well to start. I think even the way he's handled like Guendouzi and stuff like that just bodes very well. Handled Aubameyang, so I think
And
Aubameyang.
Xhaka.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it helps that there were no fans in the stadium. I think when when the Premier League restarted, because that meant he could bring Xhaka back into the team in like a toxicity-free
Yeah,
zone. But yeah, he's done really well. I
no,
just wanted a note on Kane.
cool.
Kane is a great shout. He does seem to get injured at least once a season for like 3 months, and with the fixture congestion, I worry how they're going to cope and manage his fitness, especially with no obvious backup to him. So if he stays fit all season, I'd always back Kane to be Golden Boot, but that's kind of my worry with Kane every year.
That's what he does. He just poo poos your choice, Nas. That's what he does. Just poo poos all over it.
I
Okay,
mean,
and our last one is Breakout Star. This is the most kind of nebulous one. It's kind of like what is a breakout star? But I'm gonna let you interpret it whatever way you want. Breakout star, Reuben Pinder.
Assuming the likes of Havertz and Ziyech don't really count because they're already established in Europe, maybe Ollie Watkins if he goes to Villa. I think he's a very complete player. Will probably link up very well with Grealish and score a lot of goals. Because I mean, he's the perfect example of Brentford's recruitment system paying dividends, and he scored a lot of goals for them last season. So I think if he goes there, Ollie Watkins could be a very good breakout star. I didn't want to say Eze because I've already spoken about him. So yeah, Watkins.
Well, we give you Eze as a mention as well. Fair enough. Yeah. Okay. Nos.
um, I would like it to be this player called Ethan Laird at United, who again is a very young player who's had a few injury problems, but he's a fullback. He'd be competing with Wan-Bissaka if he doesn't go out on loan, and there's high hopes for him at United. I like a proper attacking fullback. who has all the potential in the world to be like an amazing player. So I'd love it to be him. And also, like, I quite like the look of Jones at Liverpool. And I do think if they play so many games and they're not gonna, the one advantage of not sort of being able to sign these players is that you have to give young players a chance.
Yeah.
And just as much as his all round play and and the amazing goals he's already scored, it's that he seems to have the right sort of level of self confidence and ego. Because you need ego to play for a team like Liverpool or United or Arsenal somewhere. So I think I think he'll do well. And physically, for a young player, he's got stature. So yeah,
Okay, I'm going to go with Fabio Silva. No, I definitely think Fabio
off
Silva
the
is going to
Duffys.
be of the Duffys, but also because you let your kind of heart rule a little bit there. I'm also going to let my heart rule and say I think Aaron Connolly is going to be really good for Brighton this year. I actually think even in the last 9 months, he's actually stepped up a lot. And whilst Ireland were fucking abysmal in both their games in the Nations League, he was a huge bright spot. Like every time he gets the ball, he wants to beat the full back, and he's more than capable of it. He's got some tricks. He's got good confidence. Still only a young guy, 19. So I think Connolly is an interesting one because he's going to get lots of time with Brighton as well this season.
What about the lad Gordon?
Yeah, Anthony Gordon is a. I just wonder would he get as much game time now because it's a very congested midfield. I mean, he's a wide player, so he has an opportunity. And then like Iwobi's going to be a big thing for Everton. Like, is he actually going to fit in? If he fits in and pulls up his socks, Gordon will get less game time. But
Everton never should have signed Iwobi.
no, it was a terrible
He
panic
was
sign him.
such a panic because you
Yeah,
couldn't get Zaha, and now look at you, stuck with Iwobi.
I know
When they
it's and
could have
like
got Will for half the price this summer.
he's 24. Like you imagine somebody would want to take him on. It's a shame because he looks to be just missing something that makes him a good football, like a top class footballer. But anyway,
Yeah.
look at that. That's our predictions, lads. We're actually way over time. I know we wanted to talk about Mourinho and All or Nothing, Danny Rose. I actually think if you don't mind, we're going to have to leave it there because we're out of time. We'll get back to it, Nas.
Thing is, Paddy, I've been sat here and
Oh
you're not showing
God.
me any respect. You brought a young lad in who's not even left footed. It's not on.
Okay, fair enough. There you go. That's it. We'll just have. I'm not even sure what that's referenced. Nah, Nas. I haven't seen the show, but
Don't worry, I got it. It was a very good
and
analogy.
our listeners also appreciated that, and that's all that matters, really. And viewers. Jesus, did I forget the
Yes.
viewers? Fucking hell. We've been filming this on a new program, like a new program. So this may see the light of day. You'll get to see me, Nas, and Reuben, or maybe better for you and for everybody else. It's just a test run, and you're better off just listening to us as you always do on podcasts
I'm
or
I'm
wherever
I'm
you get your audio.
I'm also a big fan of the Irish making film into a two syllables. Film.
Film, yeah.
They do
Filming.
that in the northeast of England as well. It's ridiculous.
All right, okay. You chaps who speak the what is it, received RP received pronunciation, is that what they
That's
call it,
right. Yeah.
the BBC? Okay, right, lads, we should leave it there, and thank you very much to the two boys. Thanks to Nas, thanks to Reuben, thanks to you for listening, thanks to John, who's been running our test as well today. So if it sees the light of day, it's John Breslin that you need to talk to about that. And thanks to you for listening. As I mentioned, if you haven't already done so, click subscribe to get this show into your feed. Never miss a show. We'll talk again soon. We'll be back again after the weekend. Good luck.